record to the cloud. Um, and if you need to miss a session, then you can catch up with us, okay? All right. So with that background for myself, any questions about me or the nutrition division here at Stony Brook or anything like that? Nope.
No.
Okay.
No questions.
All right. So this is the schedule that we'll be using for our 10 weeks together, our initial 10 weeks at least. So today I'm going to go over, I introduce myself, administrative details. So everyone seemed to have luck with the Zoom today. I'll see if there was anybody that had trouble getting on that might email me. I will start on time each week. If you need to be late, things happen. Do not hesitate to join us, to pop in, even if it's the last 5 minutes, because you might catch the summary, whatever last little tidbit of information. This is your group and you should take advantage of it however you can. So don't worry about joining us late. If you need to leave early, please just do so quietly. And please also, everybody, help me to remember to hit record each time so that we'll have those recorded sessions for you to listen to. So how to handle weighing. We're going to talk a little bit about monitoring weight. When I used to do these groups live, I would put a scale outside of the room that we met in. People would weigh themselves and write their weight down on a piece of paper. I would put the paper in the envelope, and then I would each week kind of just check and see how people were doing. But you weighed yourself kind of privately. So we'll talk about self-weighing in detail in week 3. But right now, if you feel comfortable weighing yourself, if you have a scale, that I do recommend that you do weigh yourself regularly. And I'm taking little notes for myself. So one of the things I had wanted to ask people, and you could either answer or now or in an email. My pen stopped working. Okay. Would you like me to send you? So I sent some handouts before our session started today. Would you like me to send you by old-fashioned snail mail hard copies of the handouts? Is that something you would like? Or I think it's going to vary, right? So if you would like hard copies, I would print out the ones I know we're going to use and send them along to you. So this way you have them, you can keep them in a folder and refer to them. Some people don't like paper. They're very good keeping digital files, and that's fine. So you just share with me by email. You know what? I'm going to ask you to email me and Julie. Julie's my secretary. My hair is getting my face. And she can help me, kind of keep track of that. So email this headset. Email myself and Julie if you would. Either way, just so we know.
Okay, thank you.
And I can send those along hard copy to you. The other thing I want to mention that I will send you as an email link is a blog that we have. I'm new to the blogging world. It's you can give me feedback on the blog as well, but it's a place where I can also put some information. There's a lot of information up there already. I will send that link to you, and maybe next week we'll look at that together. We will today if we have time. Okay. Also, you all took the time to fill out that Qualtrics survey for me, so I got to learn a little bit about you, so that was very helpful. And I will share just group information. I will never share anything personal to the group, but as a group, many people do struggle with high cholesterol, so we'll be talking about that, as well as high blood pressure. These are the conditions that as a group we're struggling with. High cholesterol, hypertension, asthma, autoimmune conditions, which there's a very interesting nutrition strategy that we might get to towards the end. Hypothyroidism. And for the person who mentioned that, please don't say it out loud, but I'm curious if it's Hashimoto's hypothyroidism, because Hashimoto's is an autoimmune type of thyroid condition, and it does respond very well to gluten-free diets. So we're going to talk more about that. We have a week to catch up towards like 8 or 9 weeks, but I don't want you to wait that long. So you can let me know if it's Hashimoto's, and then it would be autoimmune, and I would just make sure that when I give you your individual plan next week that I make it gluten-free, and you could adopt that as best you can. Arthritis, someone mentioned, and GERD or gastro reflux. I also was curious to see about people's sleep. So 4 people get less than 6 hours of sleep. So sleep does impact our appetite control mechanisms and our insulin. So that was interesting to me. And as a group, pretty common challenges in terms of time constraints, making or taking the time to plan meals for the week or at least for a few days in advance, eating for emotional reasons, or eating in a way that's not connected to physiological hunger, but other reasons. And that's very common. We'll talk a lot about that. But everybody expressed a real, readiness to start improving our habits and getting to a healthier place. So that's good. So thank you for filling out those forms. I'm thinking about how I'm going to be able to tell who actually signed on today. So in the chat room, if you can, let me find the chat room. If you can find the chat room, if you can just type your, do you want to? Everyone can see the chat room. I'm trying to maintain confidentiality. So just email Julie and I, whether you want the handouts or not, but just that you were on today so that I know to do your individual plan, because sometimes people sign up and they don't actually come. And so I'll make an individual plan for those that are here today for next week. So next week, you'll get your individualized plan based on the information you put on that Qualtrics survey. We'll talk about portion sizes and monitoring techniques. We'll talk a little bit about my MyFitnessPal app. If you're someone who likes to use phone apps, and you can download that, I'm writing myself a message. I'm going to send the blog link, and in addition to what I already sent you, and the directions for using my MyFitnessPal app. It's pretty intuitive for people that like and are very familiar with using phone apps, but not everyone is. So I'll send you those directions in case you want to use that. And we'll talk more about that next week. The third week, we talk a lot about intuitive eating, mindful eating, hunger fullness scaling, a lot of really important topics. So today and next week are very content dense, a lot of nutrition information to kind of get us started. But week three is really important when we start talking about changing our relationship with food. Week 4, we do a little bit more of that. We talk about restructuring those thoughts about food. We talk a little bit about body composition. When COVID restrictions are lifted a bit, if you want, I'm going to try to make available to you, I just don't know when, that I can measure your body composition, but that would require you to come to our clinic at 181 Belmead Road, the Family Practice Center. So I'll give you that information, but I can't bring you here yet. Because we're limiting how many people are in clinic at one time. Week 5, we talk a lot about exercise, really, really important stuff. Week 6, we do a virtual supermarket tour and a lot about label reading. That's also really important. I'm sorry. Week 5 was a little bit about strength training, but more about managing your metabolic rate and setting weight goals. Week 7 is when we talk a lot about exercise. Week 8, we talk about eating out and modifying recipes. Week 9 is kind of our catch-up week and a few different, but I'm gonna pick up on the autoimmune and a lot of conditions that people are dealing with. And week 10, a lot about dealing with lapses and lapse management. So anything not on this schedule that you want me to make a note of to make sure I add or address? Any nutrition things you've been thinking about or reading about that you want to know more about?
Not that I can think of.
Okay. Anybody else? If it comes to mind, let me know. Okay. So now today we are going to
Josephine, excuse me. Do you ever discuss low FODMAP concerns?
So I absolutely can, and I can send you a specific handout on that. So FODMAP stands for fructooligosaccharides and sugar alcohols, or polyols. So it's a diet that reduces fermentable carbohydrates to deal with irritable bowel type of symptoms. It's pretty effective in doing that. Towards that catch-up week, but we'll have time to chat each week a little bit. GI is an interest of mine. So In addition to being on a FODMAP diet, if people are struggling with IBS, there is also a role to play to try to manage the gut microbes. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in a moment. Um, so that's something that we could talk more about.
Okay,
I
thank
made a
you.
note. Okay. Now, also, you guys can feel free to tell me you you don't like all this content, you didn't sign up for a nutrition class, you don't want credits. But I will throw in some slides many weeks to get us thinking a little bit deeper about nutrition. I don't expect you to, there's no quiz, there's no test. I don't expect you to necessarily take it all in, but I do think that there are a few pieces of information on take home messages I want you to get. So, first of all, in terms of weight management, people will say, oh, it's just about how many calories I take in and how many calories I expend. And for people that have never struggled with weight, they make it sound like it's so easy. But what people don't realize is that there are many factors that drive people's food seeking behavior. That's what we call it in research, right? So for people that have never struggled with weight, they're just like, eat less. Like they don't get it. For those of us that struggle more, because for some of us that struggle more, there are lots of reasons. We just don't have a good way of measuring it right now clinically, but there's lots of research going on different neurotransmitters. Some of them originate from the gastrointestinal tract itself. Ghrelin is one that we know of that is supposed to that makes us feel hungry. So for some people, the thinking is that they make too much ghrelin and their drives their appetite. Not that I'm suggesting bariatric surgery, but there's been some interesting literature on bariatric surgery that when they remove part of the stomach, they actually reduce people's ghrelin levels, which maybe is one of the reasons why that is helpful for some people. There are other appetite inhibiting hormones. So these are hormones that make you less hungry. So people vary genetically and in what genes are turned on and having an impact and which genes aren't, right? So we don't have a good way to measure these clinically and insurance would never pay for it. So people struggle for reasons that could be very real. And for some people, it's just harder, right? I tell a lot of stories. So I have a sister, I was 60 pounds heavier. I have a sister who was like 90 pounds growing up, right? So she was always so thin and I was always struggling with weight. And, for some of us, it's just our physiology. There are also other signals that drive fat storage, how much fat your body wants to store. There are also chemical signals like leptin that are released by body fat and are supposed to indicate whether there's enough fat on board or not. Because evolutionarily, we needed body fat stores to survive times of famine and times when food was not readily available. The common modern supermarket, if you go back 100 years, didn't exist, right? So we evolved very slowly with our food supply, and we evolved with lots of mechanisms to drive us to eat and store calories because that's what helped us survive. So all of us that are struggling with weight now, we would have survived years ago when our skinny counterparts may not have. Right. So there's just a lot of behind the scenes factors that make us differ in how hungry we are, how much food talks to us, how much we're driven to look for food, and also in terms of energy expenditure. Although I do think we have a little bit more control about how many calories we expend if we put ourselves on a um, exercise schedule. And we'll talk about that. Now, there might be times in your life when um, it's very hard. Like you might have small children and be taking care of a sick parent, um, or the times we're living in now when it's snowing outside and gyms are closed. There are challenges that make it harder for us to exercise. But I'm going to share with you some good exercise videos, and I'm going to really encourage you to increase your activity. Okay, any questions about this?
No.
Okay. So I do want so your weight history will give you some clues as to your metabolism and your biochemistry. So this is an example of a fictitious example of two people, a wife and a husband, and over time. So I'm starting when they're in college. So in college, the wife was 135 and the guy was 175. And they were okay and rather stable. They get married a lot of times when people are dating and just, getting married. They're very careful about their weight and they're able to lose. And then people get older and it gets harder and they get into routines and have more responsibility and people start gaining weight. When people have children, sometimes that's a challenging time to find time to exercise and eat healthy, and people might continuing to gain in their middle ages. And then sometimes people will try to lose weight and have some success, but what they did to lose weight was so strict and um, you know uh, extreme perhaps, that it's hard to sustain, so then they bounce back up and there's this kind of up and down. This would be a little bit different. There are some people that have always struggled with weight. So they were always overweight, since they were since puberty. Um, so for people that started off at higher weights, even in high school and college, that might speak to more of the physiology that you might be struggling with that's making it harder for you. So give a little thought as to how your weight has changed over time, and also, if you've been overweight for a while, or if your weight's been increasing for a while, just try to have realistic expectations in terms of losing weight, right? So if our weight's been increasing or we've been at a heavy weight for quite a long time, it's going to take a little time to lose weight too, in a healthy way. My goal is to help you not lose weight like this. I don't want you to lose weight so fast like this. It's not sustainable. And we'll talk more about that when we talk about managing metabolic rate. But it's really more sustainable if you can lose weight gradually. And as I said, we'll talk a lot more about that. And also, my goal is to help you not only lose weight, but to be healthier. You could be healthier at the weight you're at now. I mean, I don't know all your personal eating habits, but it's likely that you can adopt a healthier way of eating and be healthier. Your blood pressure might come down a little, your cholesterol or blood sugar might come down a little bit. You might have less GI side effects, but still be heavy, but healthier, and giving yourself a little bit more time to lose weight, right? So we want to get healthier and lose weight over time. It's not let's lose weight at all costs, because there's so many diets out there, right? And there's so many packaged products and um, that would have you change too quickly, and in a way that isn't necessarily overall healthy. So we're going to take the overall healthy approach. Many of us are at higher risk for heart disease and struggle with high cholesterol. So I just want to explain a little bit about that. So this is a blood vessel. Where the red is where the blood would be, right? That would be the tube. And the lining of the blood vessel is a tissue, right? So it's got some thickness to it. It's called, and the intima is the middle of it. And that is where plaque forms, is in the lining of the blood vessel. And if plaque continues to form, it can invade the actual vessel, right, and impede blood flow.
Excuse
So
me? I'm sorry. Are you showing us a picture? Because there's no picture on the screen.
Oh,
So you forgot to share. I do it all the
I
time.
had it there.
oh, this whole time I've been talking, I haven't been sharing?
No.
You have. I've seen it on here the whole time.
Yeah.
Everything.
Oh.
But now
have
you
Now
it.
we're
all
back
set?
to my personal weight history, though.
Yeah, I can see it as well.
And
I
now
don't
you
have
don't see the
anything.
coronary
Now
artery?
it's on.
I don't have anything.
It's a full screen.
How many people see my coronary artery disease slide?
Oh, I got it.
Okay.
I can
So
see it.
some people see it. I
I'm
think
sorry.
I'm doing the right thing on my end. You might need to change something on your end.
Yep, I had to change the view. Sorry.
Okay, that's okay.
Usually I'm
But-
running these, not sitting behind them. So
But do feel free to tell me if you can't see something.
thank you.
That could definitely happen. So one of the main points I wanted to make is that many of you have said that you have high cholesterol. So I'm assuming total cholesterol as well as LDL cholesterol. So the blood is watery, and fat and cholesterol are fatty, right? So they can't mix. Fat and water don't mix well. So your body makes these little suitcases called lipoproteins. We have LDL, low density lipoproteins, VLDL, very low density lipoproteins, intermediate density lipoproteins, and there's also HDL, high density lipoproteins. The doctors typically measure the LDL and the HDL. But the one point I wanted to make is that, yes, we can change the LDL through diet. But the other thing that's really important is that the LDL particles are more likely to get incorporated into plaque if they are chemically changed or oxidized. And if they are chemically changed or oxidized, they are more likely to increase inflammation, cause an inflammatory, an immune response, actually, is what happens, and contribute to this plaque. So not only can we use diet to decrease the LDL, but we're going to use diet to decrease the risk or the likelihood that they get chemically changed. And that is going to be through antioxidants, through dietary antioxidants, and a few other things that we'll talk about along the way. So, one thing is reducing the LDL number, but also when you eat healthy, and this is kind of building up to me begging you to eat tons of vegetables, because vegetables have the antioxidants that can prevent the LDL from getting oxidized. And I don't remember who it is, but one person doesn't like vegetables at all. So we have to help you to try or to sneak them into something, because we want to make sure that we're getting enough vegetables and antioxidants to prevent our LDLs from getting oxidized and contributing to plaque. Okay, so we're going to be decreasing inflammation through diet and decreasing LDL. Okay. Okay. Any questions here? The other thing to keep in mind, high blood pressure happens when our blood vessels do get this inflammation, so that normally when your heart pumps, that's called systole, or that's when it contracts, and your blood vessels should open up. And then dialysate is when they rest, and the heart rests and the blood vessels should relax a little. So your blood vessels should be doing this. But if you have plaque and inflammation, they can't do that so well, and they get stiff and inflamed. And that's what's causing, one of the factors that's causing the high blood pressure. So we want to decrease inflammation. There's a billion reasons why we want to decrease inflammation. This is one of them. Okay, so some people have issues with high blood sugar, but even if you don't have high blood sugar, as we get older, and when we're struggling with weight and we carry our weight abdominally, we have what we call insulin resistance. So insulin is a hormone that your pancreas makes, and the job of insulin is to push sugar into cells. So if you think of your body as being made up of hundreds and, well, not billions, millions and billions of cells, each cell is like a balloon, and the cell membrane is like the skin of the balloon. Okay, and on that skin of the balloon lives, well, first of all, it's made of fat, and the fats that make up your cell membrane are fats from your diet. So the fatty acids on your cell membrane are directly reflecting the fat in your diet. Okay. And when you have healthier fats, the membrane has some fluidity, and it's going to lead to less inflammation. I'll tell you that story a little bit more later on. But on this membrane lives, we call them receptors. You can think of them as little doorways that allow things to go into the cell. But for a receptor or a doorway on a cell membrane to open, a receptor has to bind to it. So we think of the receptor as a key that opens the door, and then the things can go in the cell that should go in the cell. So insulin is like a key that opens up the insulin receptor so that the sugar can go in the cell. So when we are struggling with weight and have a lot of inflammation, we become resistant to the insulin. Our doorways are stuck, they don't open. So then we make more and more insulin to compensate for that. And so you might be compensating and your blood sugar is normal because your pancreas is working like crazy to make enough insulin to try to keep the doors open. But that's not a good situation in the long run. So by losing weight, we can make ourselves more sensitive. We can decrease inflammation and be more sensitive to the insulin we're making. But in the meantime, when we're insulin resistant, it does cause some problems. I don't mean to scare anybody, but it does change some of the signals from your brain about appetite. It does cause your adipose tissues to not take in sugar so well and to make more fatty acids. It also increases signals for inflammation. When we're insulin resistant, our muscles don't take up glucose and sugar like they should. The liver actually doesn't see the fact that there's sugar in the blood and makes more sugar. So that's a problem. If anyone is struggling with blood sugar, if your blood sugars are higher in the morning, that's because your liver is making sugar. So everybody's liver tends to make more sugar in the morning. It's kind of something to help us wake up and get going. But when we're insulin resistant, the sugar is not able to see that the liver is not able to see that there's enough sugar in the blood and it makes more. And that's why sugars tend to be very hard to control in the morning. And when we're insulin resistant, it causes a dysbiosis or an unhealthy mix of microbes in our gut and leads to some issues in our gut. So we want to really deal with, well, you're here, so you're very interested in dealing with your weight, which is fabulous, but we want to do so in a way that decreases inflammation so that we can improve um, all of these functions, even while we're losing weight. You don't have to get to the ideal weight. You may never get to what is considered on the charts an ideal weight. We have to take it in steps, right? But when we start losing weight and even when we just start losing weight and eating healthier, we can decrease inflammation. And if we're exercising, improve our insulin sensitivity so that we're not as resistant. So exercise is going to be really important. And this is the last of the Nutrition 101 part of our class today. A little bit about the gut. So I'm fascinated by the gut. So your GI tract is like a tube that runs through your body, starts at your mouth and goes all the way down to your anus, we would say. And in that tube lives a bunch of bacteria. The tube is not a sterile environment. There are hundreds and hundreds of different species of bacteria that live in our gut. There are more bacterial cells than there are our own cells. The bacteria that we carry outnumber us. We have more bacterial cells than our own cells. So we want to keep them happy and a good balance, because the microbes in our gut produce all kinds of chemicals, some of which are helpful. And if there's an imbalance of the bacteria here, some are less helpful. Or if there's too many of them in the small intestine when there's not supposed to be so many, that leads to that's called small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, which can lead to some of those IBS symptoms. So the FODMAP diet is reducing fermentable carbs to try to limit the food source for these guys. But there are some more specific strategies. Whoever's dealing with IBS and on the FODMAP diet, you might want to make an individual appointment if your insurance covers it for very specific information on this, or just hold off a little bit, and I can help you a little bit in class too. Okay, so all of us, though, especially for those with autoimmune conditions, so the microbes that are here and the chemicals they produce communicate with your immune cells. So the largest part of your immune system lines your GI tract. There's just a few little cells here as an example. And so autoimmune conditions are a dysregulation of your immune system. And microbes have something to do with that. So by creating a healthy gut environment, we can help the microbes communicate appropriately to the immune cells and calm a overreaction and have a positive impact on autoimmune conditions. And sometimes we remove food antigens like gluten, dairy, corn, soy from the diet to help with autoimmune conditions. Okay, enough of that right now. So the tool that we're going to use to help us create a healthy diet, and we're going to talk about this throughout our entire time together, is called the Bullseye Food Guide. And it puts foods into one of 6 food groups. We have milk and yogurt, grain and starches, fruits, vegetables, fats, and proteins. And within each food group, the healthiest foods are in this green circle. The okay foods are in the middle yellow. And the least healthy foods are in this red outer circle. Okay. So the idea is that we want to eat a variety of food, but we want to choose the foods that are in the green circle. So over time, we're going to learn that if we can really move into the green inner circle, eat when we're hungry, and stop at the early signs of fullness and exercise, that those are the keys to long-term weight management. But to get us there, we have to do a little bit more learning and planning. So in addition to that graphic, I did send you today what I call the swap lists. So the swap list now there's a page for each one of those 6 food groups. The first column is like that green inner circle. These are the healthiest foods. The middle column would be the yellow, okay, and the outer column are the least healthy foods. So for vegetables, all fresh or frozen plain vegetables are in the green inner circle. I've highlighted some that are especially good for inflammation and reducing progression of chronic illnesses, but they're all good really. But these are some that they're a little bit higher in antioxidants, but a variety is good. So for vegetables, a half a cup is a unit. So now on this handout, unlike the graphic, unlike this one, on this one, I start showing you now amounts that equal a swap or a unit. And then ultimately, let me show you one other thing. Ultimately, we're going to be, oh, this is a low FODMAP diet, so I have to make sure I send that to you. But ultimately, I'm going to send you a template, and there's going to be 3 days, 3 different templates. And for each meal, I'm going to suggest a certain number of servings from the different food groups and give you a sample menu, sample food items, and the amounts of that food item that equal that number of swaps. So for milk, if it's Greek yogurt, it's 3/4 of a cup. But for some meals like dinner, you might have not 1 grain starch, you might have 2 grain starches. So then you can double up. Okay. So I'm going to go back to this, but before we get too far into this, we have to go through our swap list. So eating a variety of vegetables is really important because the color of the vegetables indicates the kind of antioxidants it has. So beta carotene is more of the yellow orange, lycopene is more of the red, chlorophyll is more of the green. So you want to eat a variety of colors because you want a variety of antioxidants. They tend to work together. So you want a big variety of vegetables, as much as you can do. But of course, I don't want people to waste. So I don't want you to overbuy and then you don't get to cook it and it goes bad. So frozen are fine too. It does help you to always make sure you have vegetables on hand, a nice variety without worrying about them going bad. Or you might buy 2 or 3 one week and a different 2 or 3 the next week so that you get a variety of different colors. Okay. So a half a cup is a unit or a swap. However, you can eat as many vegetables as you want, and it really helps you to feel full. So to this day, ever since I started losing weight, every single day I have a salad, but I change it up and I put different things in it. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later. And you don't have to have a salad every day. But I find that if I need to eat volume, I get hungry quick, and I don't want to feel too hungry. So I always have a big salad bowl, and then I add different vegetables to it. With dinner, I always have vegetables, tons of vegetables, and I often put a bed of arugula or a bed of spinach or a bed of greens on my plate before I put anything else, even hot stuff, because the volume just helps me. It just helps me to feel full. And then I could have smaller amounts of the other foods. I can enjoy them, but in smaller amounts. So if you don't like vegetables, I would ask you to look at this list and find 1 or 2 that you can start with. And when I was really heavy and I was trying to learn to like different foods, yogurt always comes to mind because I would literally make myself have a tablespoon of plain yogurt a day until I learned to like it. So your taste buds are, trainable, I guess we can say. And if you continue to expose yourself to different foods, you can learn to like them. Most people. There are some people, and research has shown this, that are super tasters, that when I taste spinach or broccoli is not the same as when you taste spinach or broccoli. That for you, the taste is really super bitter or super strong. So for some people, it is hard for them to learn to like vegetables, but maybe then broccoli is not your friend, but maybe carrots that are a little bit sweeter might be something that you can learn to like, or string beans tend to be a little bland. Baby spinach tends to be pretty bland, not cooked, plain, fresh. Um, as opposed to broccoli that's pretty strong, or kohlrabi or leeks or Swiss chard. Those are more bitter. Brussels sprouts, that's harder for some people to learn to like. Okay. Vegetable juice, I don't want you to have. It's not very common anymore. Tomato sauce is okay. You can have it sometimes, but with tomato sauce, they remove the fiber, or much of the fiber is removed, and there tends to be added oils or salt and or sugar. So tomato sauce is okay, but not as good as regular vegetables. Any question about vegetables? I'm going to move on to fruits. Okay, so fruits, the first column is going to include fresh or frozen or dried fruit that has nothing added to it. Fruit juices are in the middle, canned fruit and fruit juices, because the fiber has been removed. And even if it has some of the pulp, it's not the same as the intact fiber. And then candied or sweetened fruits are out in the outer red circle. So fruits are also a good source of antioxidants and fiber. However, fruit comes with a lot of natural sugar too, right? So fruit comes with, because fruit comes with sugar, we have to be careful how much we have. We can't have unlimited amounts like we can vegetables. And because fruits vary so much in their natural sweetness, how much sugar they have, but also their size, a grape is a lot different than a grapefruit. The portion sizes vary a lot based on the kind of fruit, which I know is annoying, but you'll kind of get used to it, especially the fruits that you like. So for many fruits that are a normal size piece, like a pear or an orange or an apple, a medium sized piece is considered a swap or a unit. Bananas are really big, so it has to be half. So the amounts here are selected because they provide about 60 calories. For each of the food groups, a unit or a swap equates to a number of calories. So for vegetable, it's 25. For fruit, it's 60. So for grapefruit, half a grapefruit is about 60 calories. A banana, it's half. Apple, it's 1. Berries, berries we usually cut up, maybe not blueberries, but 3/4 of a cup. Melons, where are my melons? Melons, honeydew melon, an eighth of a melon or a cup. So for the different fruits, you do have to kind of get to know the swaps, because if you're consistently counting one banana as one swap, then you're getting 60 extra calories, which in the long run might make a difference. Dried fruits are very concentrated. The sugar's concentrated. They still have their fiber. It hasn't been removed, but the sugar's more concentrated because all the water has been removed. So the serving sizes get much smaller. And just be aware that many dried fruits have sugar added to them or oils sprayed on them, especially cranberries. Cranberries have sugar added to keep them from sticking or to sweeten them. So for dried fruits, you really have to look at the label carefully and make sure that it's just the fruit. Okay. All right. Any questions?
Josephine?
Sure.
How do you figure fruits or vegetables if you want to make smoothies?
So in the beginning, when we're first learning, I'm going to talk to you about very basic, simple foods because it's easier to think about.
Right.
When you start making recipes or combining foods, it gets a little bit more challenging. Now, I know smoothies are really popular. I'm not a big fan of smoothies. I'm not a big fan of smoothies because, especially the ones that you get out, they have a ton of sugar.
Mhm.
The ones you make at home might have less sugar, but they probably still have a decent amount of sugar. Depends. So if you wanted to make a smoothie, you'd have to make one just for yourself so that you know exactly what you're putting in. So if I'm putting a cup of almond milk and half a banana, well, I know that's about a dairy, actually half a dairy, and a fruit. And then you can throw in some spinach, which is basically a freebie, but it's a way to sneak spinach in. So for something like a smoothie or a soup, even more complicated. You kind of have to visualize what's in the soup, what's swimming around, how much chicken is in there versus how much vegetables, and you got to estimate, right, as best you can. The other reason why I'm not a big fan of smoothies is because research has shown, or beginning of research, is that if people that are eating a ton of greens like kale and spinach in a smoothie every single day, it's an unusual concentration of oxalates and phytates that are in vegetables. Normally, you wouldn't eat 2 cups of kale, right? So although it seems great that you can get it in a smoothie, there's an unintended consequence that you could be getting too many oxalates, which could predispose some people to kidney stones. So there has been some reported cases of people getting kidney stones because of smoothies. So it sounds silly. So, but it is an issue. And then also, if you're putting protein powder in a smoothie, I'm not a big fan of protein powder. I'm a big fan of food looking like when it was alive and growing. So protein powder bears no resemblance to a chicken or a kidney bean, right? What you have to do to protein to get it in that powdered format, you have to heat it, and heating changes things, to begin with. Dehydrate it, heat it, grind it. So so over time, again, I don't expect you to do everything at once, but I would encourage you to move towards a food-based plan, a whole food-based plan. So you eat a chicken, not a chicken nugget. You eat a potato or rice, but not, even when we get to grains and starches, in my opinion, bread is a fairly processed food. Bread does not grow on trees. Whole wheat bread does not grow on trees. It is a pretty processed food. Now, there are some good ones like Ezekiel bread and Dave's Killer bread. But many other breads and bread products have emulsifiers that are not good for your GI tract. If you have any GI issues, you have to really try to avoid emulsifiers. Anyway, I got off on a bit of a tangent. Any other questions? That's a good question. I like questions. Any other question?
I have a question. There's no lettuce on the vegetable list?
Oh, because it's a freebie.
No.
When I get to the freebies, I'll show you. It's
Oh,
got so little calories. You eat it as much as you want.
Okay, just checking. Thank you.
Yep. Okay, the grain and starch page, the first column are the least processed, highest fiber, and you're going to get this, or you already got it in that email. Least processed, highest fiber items. The ones that are in yellow are my most favorite because they are the least processed. So beans, peas, and lentils, oatmeal, quinoa, parsnips, potatoes, sweet potatoes, pumpkin, or winter squashes like acorn and butternut squash, spaghetti squash, and brown rice. Those are my all-time favorites from the grain and starch group. Other grains tend to be more processed or not as high in antioxidants. I mentioned bread. Bread's in the inner circle. Whole grain bread is in the inner circle. The grains and starches, the amount shown equal about 80 calories. So some breads are huge, right? The slices are huge. So it's more like 110 calories or 140 calories. Then that's almost 2 swaps worth. But the units you see here equate the amounts that equal a unit are the amounts of each particular food item that equals about 80 calories. Now, I don't want to drive you crazy. My goal is not that you're going to, calculate for the rest of your life and measure everything for the rest of your life. But, right now we're just learning. Okay. So these are the amounts of particular food items that equal 80 calories. The white flour products are in the middle. They don't have the fiber. They don't help us control our blood sugar. They can contribute to high triglycerides, insulin resistance, high blood sugar, inflammation, especially the sugars that are out here. But these white flour products are really not good. Oh, a dysbiosis. They don't help to support the healthy microbes in our gut.
But they also all taste good.
I know we have to think about taste, right? Because what I do realize that when people are willing to try foods out here, but you really grieve the loss of foods that you have learned to love over the years, right? You miss things. So yeah, that's a good point, and that's why you have to think about. For some of us, it's not good to go cold turkey. But I will tell you that after 20 years, no, I'm kidding. It took me about 10 years to lose the 60 pounds. I lost weight very, very, very slowly. But over time, the more healthy foods you eat and the less of this stuff you eat, your taste buds change, but it does take time. It takes a lot of time. So, you know, you're gonna be trying to adopt some more of these foods, but you're not gonna get rid of these foods altogether. It's just gonna take you time. But as long as you still stick to the unit amount, you can still manage your calorie intake and still lose weight. It'll help you with inflammation and whatnot and all the other stuff to try as much as you can the foods here. But I will tell you, most of us who have kids, I have 3 kids, they're, you know, home again. Some of them, one's moving out again. And I train them to eat healthy, and for the most part they do. But my son that's home with me now, he keeps making white rice. I'm like, stop making white rice. I used to eat brown rice. But they're good cooks and they like to cook. But you can get away with some of these more refined products if you eat tons of vegetables with them, because then you're getting the antioxidants and the fiber from the vegetables. Right? Because if you look at a label, brown rice doesn't have that much fiber compared to white rice. And that's like 2 grams. So if I'm going to eat 2 cups of vegetables, well, at least I'll be getting 3, 6, 12 grams of fiber from my vegetables. That'll make up for the lack of fiber in the white rice. So that's a little trick. And the antioxidants in the vegetables will help decrease the inflammation. So yes, feel free to throw in some reality checks here and there. All right, the outer circle, no one expects you to go through life not eating these foods. So you need to know how to count them. So the foods in the first section are the sugary foods that have sugar but not fat. So sugar-free cookies, sweetened cereals, barbecue sauce, honey, jelly, puddings, all that syrup. These are all foods that get their calories from sugar. You can think of sugar as 1 or 2 Lego pieces, and complex carbohydrates like white flour as hundreds of Legos. And then high fiber grain, complex carbohydrates with fiber as being like those long Lego strands, hundreds of Legos, but the fiber is like a sheath that covers the strands so that it's hard for your digestive enzymes to get to them. Because without fiber, those really long strands of Legos, your digestive enzymes break them up in seconds. So they become sugar almost instantaneously in your GI tract. So sugar's 1 or 2 Legos, white flour's hundreds of Legos, but without the fiber, they become single Legos really quick and are absorbed as sugar. But the fiber in these guys slow that down. But if you had white rice and you eat it, you know, a little white rice and vegetables at the same time, they go down together, then the fiber from the vegetables can do that same thing. Okay, so then the sugars out here, these are counted as starches because sugars and starches are related. It's just how long the chain is. So that's why we count these foods from the starch group. And small amounts like honey, 1 tablespoon of honey is like a slice of bread. Very concentrated calories. So anytime you have 2 tablespoons of barbecue sauce, you could have had half a cup of pasta. And barbecue sauce is not that filling, right? But does have the flavor. So these foods, you know, the calories add up. Sugary fatty starches, like cake, cookies, and ice cream, they count as starches and fats. And starchy fatty foods like croissants or French fries or hash browns, muffins, things like that count as starches and fats. So if you're dying to have some French fries, frozen French fries, 3 ounces, so you have to look on the bags, probably like 10 fries, is going to equal a starch and a fat. So maybe you cook with less olive oil. Or if I like to have a chocolate, to be specific, Nature's Promise chocolate square, chocolate caramel with sea salt. That's my favorite. So I like to have chocolate once in a while. So I will give up my starch with dinner and some fat so I can have my chocolate later. So some of you are on the short side like me. I'm 5'1". I don't get a lot of calories. I'm older now. I'm 56. I just turned 56, and I'm 5'1", and I'm female. So I get like no calories. I know what you mean. You know, a lot of us we just don't need a lot of calories. You'd be surprised to know how little calories your body needs. So if I want to have something out here, I have to make up for it. I have to swap. and change. That's why I call them swaps. So maybe for dinner, sometimes I'm not having pasta, rice, or potato because I want to save it for some chocolate later or 2 cookies later or something like that. All right, milk and yogurt group. So this group includes our cow-based dairy products and the increasingly popular non-cow-based alternative dairy products. So cow's milk, skim milk, a cup is a swap. 1% milk is also just one swap. Unsweetened vanilla almond milk is so low in calories. 3 cups equals a swap. Soy milk, if it's unsweetened and lower fat soy milk, a cup is a swap. And then our yogurts. So Greek yogurt is highlighted here because it has less sugar and more protein. 3/4 of a cup is equal to a swap. A swap is about 90 calories. Kefir is a more liquidy, pourable type of yogurt. So the 1% milk and yogurt products are here. The fat-free are here. And then 2% milk counts as a milk unit or milk swap plus a fat swap because 2% milk has some fat in it. And then whole milk counts as my whole milk. 1 cup equals 1 milk and 2 fats. Okay. The gray is just alternating. The gray has actually got a little messed up. The gray doesn't mean anything. The yellow means it's really healthy. The healthier in the group. Okay. Now our protein, we're getting near the end here. Our protein foods in the inner circle, the healthiest are fish, vegetarian proteins like beans and soybeans, and nut butters have a lot of protein. But we also have chicken and fish here. My poultry's here. But fish is better, and eating a vegetarian meal here and there is good too. So now the amounts of food shown to equal a swap is 55 calories. So egg whites, it's 3 egg whites. You could also get egg substitutes, which is basically the egg whites. Fish, medium to fatty fish like salmon or tuna, 1 ounce is a swap. White fish is so low in calories, fish like flounder, cod, or haddock, that 2 ounces is a swap. Tuna fish is 1/4 of a cup. Chicken and turkey, 1 ounce. Beans, 2/3 of a cup counts as a protein and a starch. 1/3 of a cup, a smaller amount, was on the grain and starch page, just as a starch. But if you're having a chili and it's a vegetarian chili, then we're using the beans for our protein. We take a little bit more. 2/3 of a cup equals that starch still, but now enough protein has accumulated to call it a protein as well. Soybeans or edamame, 1/2 a cup is a protein and a starch, and natural nut butters, 4 teaspoons, count as a protein and a fat. Nuts are very healthy. Nut butters are very healthy. They're anti-inflammatory, but in a nut, there's protein and there's fat. So we have to, 4 teaspoons equals 1 protein and 1 fat swap. The leanest cuts of red meats are here, and cheeses, much more inflammatory. We don't want to have these every day. 1 ounce is a swap for the most part. Eggs, 1 egg is a swap. If you have high cholesterol, you really have to watch the eggs. Cheese, low-fat cheeses are okay. They're in the middle. 3 grams of fat or less per ounce. 1 ounce is a unit. And then the very fatty proteins are out here, and they are really not good. And processed meats, they increase risk for inflammation, for cancer, for GI conditions, inflammation in your gut, and heart disease. So these we really, I don't even want to, I'm not going to talk about them. No, I'm kidding. These we really want to reduce. So this is your Frankfurters, lunch meats like bologna, salami, liverwurst, spare ribs, whole fat cheese, regular cheese. These protein foods, every 1 ounce equals a protein and 2 fats. So I might recommend 5 or 6 fats a day. You have 3 ounces of cheese, that's your fat for the whole day. So high in fat, and the kind of fat that raises cholesterol. Okay, and then the fat group itself in the inner circle, these are the fats that are healthiest. The ones that are yellow are the most healthy. They decrease inflammation, and that's really important. The amount shown equals 45 calories. So we have our different nuts. Now, These foods, fats are calorically dense. For a little bit, you get a lot of calories. So the serving sizes, the swaps, the units are small. It's like 4 to 6 nuts or a tablespoon. For pesto, it's 2 teaspoons. Seeds, it's about a tablespoon. For our oils, olive oil is the healthiest. A teaspoon is a fat swap. Avocado, it's 1/8 of an avocado. These fats in the middle are pretty pro-inflammatory, and these fats in the outer circle are pro-inflammatory and increase cholesterol. And then, yeah, okay, so that is it for now. Okay, so I thought I had my free page. Let's see where the one I sent you is this one, and the free foods or combination foods are here. So you asked about the lettuce. So there's some vegetables like endive, escarole, fresh herbs and spices, garlic, ginger root. They have so few calories, they're healthy, they're fine. And you can eat as much as you want. Some foods have almost no calories, but I don't recommend them because they're sugar-free or they're high in sodium. And we'll talk a little bit more next time about artificial sweeteners. So I say not recommended. Almost free foods, they have, if you have them just in the amount shown, the calories won't accumulate too much, but I do tell you which ones I don't recommend. Combination foods are things that are hard to separate, like hummus. 1/3 of a cup of hummus is very healthy and counts as a starch and a fat. Pizza, most people will have a hard time giving up pizza, so I tell you how to count it. One slice equals 2 starches, 2 proteins, and 2 fats. Bean soups, a starch, a protein, a fat. So this is some ways to count some combination foods. So, this is a process. So what I'm going to send you, well, actually one thing, this document I did already send you. I hope you're familiar with Excel. If not, make sure you're one of the people that tell me that you want me to mail you this, because you just need to know how to click on these little tabs on the bottom. Can you see these little tabs? Oops, that's a little small. Oh my goodness, come back here. I have too many things open. So if you click on the little tabs, they're labeled to be the different food groups. Okay. And then I'm going to send you the meal. I'm going to send, well, I think I sent this to everybody already. But I have to tell you how many calories. But roughly, so this is the same thing, the cardiometabolic meal plans. There's 1,400, but I'm going to give you an individualized one next week. But if you want to get started, I have 14, 16, 18, 2,000, and 2,200. There are 3 templates and sample menus, but you can use those lists we just went over to swap out. So let's say here I have raspberries and you don't like raspberries. Well, you might want to put a banana in your yogurt. So you have 2 fruits. You can actually have a whole banana. That's if you get 2,200 calories. I would only get like 16. I would only have half a banana because I would only get 1 fruit. So you can swap out the items that I have here and go to the swap list and take the right amount to equal the number of servings that I'm suggesting. I make a point to use herbs and seasonings because they're very anti-inflammatory, really very healthy. Okay, there are some helpful cooking videos on the end here. So for women, honestly, if you're shorter, 1,400 or 1,600 calories. If you're tall, 1,600 to 1,800 calories. For guys, if you're on the shorter side, 18 to 2,000. If you're on the taller side, 2,000 to 2,200. This is just to help you get started until I give you your individual plan. Okay.
Okay.
Now, no one expects you to wake up tomorrow and follow this exactly. But you're just going to say, okay, what can I do to start lining up here? How much grain and starch should I be having with dinner? So, all right, on this is 1,800 calorie plan, dinner, 2 grains and starches. Well, that's a cup. A cup is like a tennis ball or like my fist. And I'm currently eating 2 cups. Well, maybe I can just work on my starches and for dinner and try to eat less. Maybe I'm just going to make sure I have vegetables for lunch, so that whatever I'm eating for lunch, I can eat less because I'm going to be a little more full because I had a huge bag of carrots before I started eating anything else. maybe I want to start with breakfast and start committing to one of these breakfast templates. Okay, so just pick something that you want to start on to get in the right direction. Or I'm just going to start eating less protein foods from the red outer circle. Okay, so just, go through the meal plans and just start thinking about how can I start lining up. And then we're going to talk, much more. This will be where we start next week. Did I go over everything I needed to? I think so. So you're going to email me so that I make sure I know that I need to give you a meal plan. You're going to email Julie and I. Otherwise, I won't think you came today and I won't know I have to do a meal plan for you. Your individual meal plan. And then in that same email or another email, just tell me if you want a hard copy of the handout sent to you. Okie doke.
Thank you.
Any questions? Now, did I scare anybody off? Is this too much? Am I driving
No.
you crazy? Make sure you're going to come back next week, right?
Josephine,
Mm-hmm.
you said you've sent this to everybody already, have you? All these slides that we've seen?
Not the PowerPoint because I just pick and choose from a presentation I had, but this I did, the swap list, the bullseye,
When did you send that?
like an hour or two before class, maybe.
Oh, I'll have to look again because I don't remember seeing any of this, so.
So I got the emails from Julie. So if you didn't get it, if you did not get an email from me, then yes, email me again because then
Okay.
I either have a typo in your email
Okay.
or something
It
like
came
that.
to me at 5:04.
5:04.
If that helps narrow it
Okay.
down.
So I lied. It was only a half hour before class.
Okay,
Is anyone feeling overwhelmed?
yes.
No, but can I just ask you something real quick?
Totally reasonable.
On the
Yes.
snack, you can have, it says 2 fruits, so apples, so it means you could have 2 medium fruits?
So you could have 2 fruits. So an apple,
Okay.
it's 2 medium apples.
Okay, well, like a mandarin and an apple.
Yeah,
Okay,
or
so you
2
have
different
fruit.
kinds. Yeah. But this
That's
is,
that
yeah.
one snack area, that like one time of you eating a snack, you could have 2.
Yes. Or you can flex things a little bit. We'll talk a
And you
little
could
bit
add-
more. We're going to talk a
and you
little bit
could
more
add the
about
peanut
intermittent
butter?
fasting and whatnot. What?
And you could add the peanut butter with that also, have it on your apple, or that's just, you can only have the apple?
Yeah, but we're looking at the 1800 calorie one, Siobhan, just so you know.
Oh, I
So-
see, yeah.
So
You're right, thank you, Josephine.
for
Yeah,
us,
you're right.
and I don't know how tall you are, but for
I
us
see.
shorter women,
No.
we're only at
I'm
1400.
Nope, I'm short. Okay, there's the
Don't get
answer.
too excited. We don't get 1800.
Thank you.
Josephine, can I ask you about condiments? How
Sure.
does that work into all of this? Because I know sometimes, that's one of my downfalls, like dipping.
Yeah. So the condiments, remember on the grain and starch page, many of them were on that side. So grain and starch, if you're using barbecue sauce or what kinds of things are you using? Is it like hummus or is it like guac or ranch dressing?
Well, it would be like salad dressings and stuff like that.
So then if I go to the fat page, salad dressings, vinaigrettes are here, but creamy ones, salad dressing, creamy. 2 teaspoons is a
Yeah.
fat. Okay. And yeah, as you start looking at this and trying to make some changes, a lot of questions will come up. I'll be honest with you. So normally I would meet people. Normally way before COVID, we would meet once a week in person, and people would come with their questions. I did ask you to email me today, but it's with all the telehealth we're doing and groups and whatnot. I'm getting like hundreds of emails a day, so I do need to ask you to bunch your questions up. For the most part, unless it's a burning question, for the next week's class. And if it's something really important and you email me and I don't get back to you within like 2 or 3 days, it just fell through the cracks, and email me again. Okay. Okay. I'm trying to notice the names. Please, and definitely email me that you were here so I do your plan, your individual plan.
Does present weight have anything to do with the number of calories you'll be given?
Does current weight?
Yes.
Yes.
So if you're heavier, you're going to get a higher calorie menu. Okay.
But I will tell you, the biggest determinants of how many calories you get is your height.
Really? Huh.
Yeah. Then weight and then age. And then activity level ultimately will become important. But yeah, I know that's why when being short is it's hard when you're short. It is. It's harder. I'm very jealous of tall people.
Mhm.
Any other questions? Okay. I will see you next week.
We're just closing right now.
And I'm going to stop my recording, get my link.